Welcome to the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're sitting down with Rebecca Thomas. Rebecca is the CEO of TNT Construction Management Group, a specialty concrete company that has served clients internationally for over 25 years. In this episode, she'll discuss her role and her journey as CEO of the company, give listeners advice on inspiring leadership, and encourage leaders to own the platform that God has given them. So lean in, leaders, and let's get started. Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. I'm your host, Virgil Sierra, lead pastor of Vertical Church, aka Iglesia Vertical in South Florida. We are one church, two languages. I'm your host right here on AVAIL, where we talk to amazing leaders. And can I just say, we never disappoint. We have amazing leaders. Today, we have the opportunity and the blessing to sit down with the one and the only Rebecca Thomas. Rebecca, we are honored to have you as a guest on the AVAIL podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this and our conversation today. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that today's conversation is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be fun. And the truth is, I always say that because I love the leaders that we get to talk with and share with, that I get to interview. Before we jump in to your leadership journey as CEO of TNT Construction Management Group, which I'm excited to talk about, can you just share with our Vail audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay, great. Well, obviously, my name is Rebecca Thomas. I'm a wife, a mother of four, and the CEO of TNT Construction Management Group, and unapologetically in that order. And really passionate about life. I'm really passionate about life and growth and people and just living out that calling that the Lord has given me.
Yeah, and we'll probably touch on this somewhere along the conversation, but you are, as you said, you are a wife, you are a mother, you are a daughter of King Jesus, and by the way, you're CEO of TNT Construction Management Group. Let's start off there a little bit about your leadership journey and specifically with TNT becoming the CEO. Kind of how was that process and how was that journey of getting to where you are today?
No, that's a great question. Throughout life or different scenarios I've been in, you often take those behavioral profiles, right? Those kind of assessments as
Uh-huh.
your person or your personality. And I think I've probably taken 5 or 6 of these profiles. And it's always saying high driver, influencer, motivator, captain, challenger. And at the bottom, it'll give you a list of, what careers you would be good at. And mine always came out as executive, like a business executive of some sort. And I came on board. Well, my husband started TNT way back, I think, over 27 years ago, so maybe 96, something like that. His college year, his senior year of college, he had started TNT, and he's a tradesman by training in the concrete masonry industry. And then he is also an entrepreneur at heart, so he started that. So throughout our marriage, I would always be the sounding board, if you will. I participated in
Mm-hmm.
TNT in different various roles back. I think my first job with them was in 2003, so prior to getting married. And in various different roles, I participated. But ultimately, I was the sounding board. And there got to be a time in our life where he started asking me. This might have been about 2016, 2017, to come on board full time in an executive style role and help him with the organization. And at that time, I was, like I said, I'm a mother of four. That was a priority. And I was
Mm-hmm.
I was also on a board for another organization, and I was a part of their finance, and still am a part of their finance and audit committee. And we also have a nonprofit, and we have a commercial development company that I was running at that time. So time wise, I didn't have time. It just wasn't there. I would just remain the sounding board for him. Well, there was a summer I was out for a run. I want to say this was about 2017. I was out for a run in the summer, and I very clearly heard the Lord say, "Get prayed up for the mantle I'm about to give you." And I knew exactly
Mm,
what he was talking about. And my husband, a few months later, circled back again and said, I'd really love for you to come on board and help me run the organization. And at that time, I committed. I said, yeah, I'll come on board. I'll help.
mm,
So I came in as the executive vice president in 2018 and went down on a granular level on how the organization was running. And I got really my role was creating organizational structure and vision alignment and fiscal parameters for growth. Is really what my role was bringing the company
mm.
along. Interesting enough, though, I think it was like the winter of 2018. So I'm trying to remember all these different dates. I also heard the Lord say that I was going to give birth to something new. He called me and equipped me, and I was going to give birth to something new. And it was short. We were walking towards a Christmas party. I was in Florida with my husband, Christmas party for TNT, and I get a text from a friend from a ministry friend of ours, and she texted and she said, "Are you pregnant?" And I'm like, no, there's no way I'm pregnant. We're done. We have 4 kids. I'm done. And she said, I had a dream about you last night. And I told him, I've got to text Rebecca and ask her because in the dream, you were wearing a blue dress. Our company colors are blue and orange, by the way. You were wearing a blue dress. You were pushing a stroller and you were pregnant. And you went and you sat down on concrete steps. And it was at that moment where it was a confirmation for me as to what the Lord was calling me to do, in that I was going to give birth to something new. There was going to be a change at TNT, and the change ended up becoming going from an owner operator model, right, which is really a singular owner that's driving an
Yeah.
organization and all the different pieces, to a corporation, and a corporation that was going to be set up to grow, right? We can only take things so far, and then another leader steps in and takes it another
Right.
level, right?
Hmm.
And so what ended up happening was a little, oh, I don't know, maybe a year later, after my husband saw everything that was taking place in the organization and what we were doing, had come back to me and said, I think it's time you take the reins and you take it to
Mm.
that next level. And that's really how that transfer happened. So it's kind of a unique story in a sense of how I ended up becoming the CEO of TNT and where we're at today. Now, we're still in this growth phase. Going from owner operator into a corporation is not an easy task, right?
Right.
It's not an easy task. It's a shared responsibility. You're kind of changing your approach. You're asking leaders to rise up within your organization. And yeah, that's a bit of the story of how I got to where I am today.
I think it's interesting because you probably before this, right? Like you weren't thinking for years. Maybe someday I'll be the CEO of TNT, right? Like it's amazing how the Lord has a way of guiding us sometimes where we don't even know He's guiding us to. And I love that about the story because sometimes we want to plan. We think we have all the plans ready, and surprise, it's not exactly maybe what we thought. I know that in my journey as well. There's been
Yeah.
moments where there's been moments where God led me wasn't exactly where I thought it was going to be, but then I realized this is exactly where I need to be. And so I
Mhm.
guess as you've shared a little bit about how you got to being CEO of TNT, what would you say is your favorite aspect about the company? Because obviously, you're leading the charge. There's so many. I'm sure now at the size that the company's at, there's so many moving parts. What would you say is your favorite aspect of it?
It's the people. Hands down, it's the people. I think as a business owner, and as in my role as CEO and also being the business owner, there is such an opportunity. I think it is such a blessing and it's such a gift to create an organization and grow an organization that creates jobs. And it
Hmm.
creates opportunity for people to have careers to provide for their family. I think anyone that's listening
Hmm.
would say yes. There's fulfillment in your role. I think God created
Yeah.
us to work, right?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
and having this position and being able to grow an organization, to create jobs, to create opportunities for people excites me. And being able to be a steward of that, being able to steward the people the Lord that the Lord has blessed us with in our organization, I love it. It's fuel for me in taking care of these people that He's entrusted us with.
I love that. I think that there's a beautiful aspect, and some people who have never maybe experienced that high level leadership sometimes have never felt the weight of that. That what we do matters because what we're doing is providing for families. It's providing for homes, and what a privilege that is. And I love the word you use, stewarding. I think we are responsible for stewarding well what God entrusts us. I'm curious. I'm curious to hear kind of your perspective, right? And this, I'm sure there's a little bit of self reflection here. How has your leadership grown? Because when you took over the company, I'm sure it was at a certain point, and where it is now, it's grown. It's not where it used to be, but not
Right.
only has the company grown, you've grown. And when you self reflect a little bit on your leadership, how have you grown as a leader? And what are you trying to continue to achieve and grow in as a leader?
That is a great question. How have I grown as a leader? Naturally, I am a learner. I love to learn. And what I don't know, I'm going to seek out to learn. But I'm going to start with this.
Mhm.
Almost every single morning in my time with the Lord, I have always asked, please give me wisdom and please give me what's needed today to be the leader that you've called me to be. And I have to start with that posture of humility because I'm telling you,
Mhm.
I'm way out of my comfort zone in being placed in the center of leading this large group of people in this organization. And so I start with that piece, Lord, give me what's needed. You called me here. I remember that. Get prayed up for the mantle I'm about to give you. So you've called me here, so I know you'll equip me. That's your character. That's who you are. When you call us into
Mhm.
positions of leadership, you'll give us what's required. But then there's an aspect of, okay, well, let me go find those mentors, or let me read those case studies, right? I got involved in some different classes. Essentially, I went back to school for 4 years in
Mhm.
executive management and so on and so forth, and really got in front of some great individuals that impacted me on their leadership style and skill. And I learned about the how to develop your interpersonal skills and how
Mhm.
to increase your emotional EQ, if you will, in leading people, right? And inspiring them. There's a natural bent in me to want to motivate and encourage people to be the best that they can be. I have some of my team members, actually one of our senior leaders said he calls what I have Rebecca's endless mountain. They're always trying to scale Rebecca's endless mountain because if you do, or my husband will say she'll move the push-up bar, or the pull-up bar a bit further for you to get, because she always wants you to grow. But it's the same pressure I put on myself. I want to grow as a leader, right? So you're seeking out those that have gone before you, and you're asking yourself those hard questions: what's working, what's not working? Can I have crucial conversations? That was
Yep.
another one for me, is being able to deliver a crucial conversation. Someone told me one time, you have the ability to slap someone's hand and them not knowing their hand just got slapped, but they want to get better. And I thought that's a win, right? Being able to
Mhm.
have a crucial conversation to help people improve, but not hurt their person, right? Not hurt them as an individual. That to draw out from them, if you will, the ability to want to learn themselves. And I had someone tell me the best way to grow a team is for your team to watch you yourself grow. It's very humbling, right? As a CEO, we
Yep.
don't know everything. We don't know everything. We have the vision, the idea, right? The wanting to create alignment and move forward, but we don't know everything. And when you're leading a team that sees that desire from you to learn and grow as well, it's inspiring to them.
Mhm.
They want to improve. They want to grow. And I've seen that in our team. I've seen that in our people at TNT, just the amount of growth, the unlocking that's happening with inside of them, to become better at their craft or better at their interpersonal skills, or, just going from, I mean, in all sincerity, there's a generation of individuals coming in that do not know how to have face to face conversations or crucial
Yeah.
conversations. They're stuck on texting or emails, and we're having to coach that. We're having to coach those interpersonal skills on how to communicate face to face and have crucial conversations with clients or coworkers, if you will. So it started with me. Yeah, it started with me growing as a leader, and I'm definitely not who I was 4 or 5 years ago as a leader.
Yeah, I'm hearing in what you're saying. I'm hearing con- how you've grown in your leadership, continuous learning. I'm hearing
Mm-hmm.
finding mentors. I'm hearing studying, right? Going to school, case studies, developing your skills with your people skills, having crucial conversations, having hard conversations sometimes, coaching others, right? This is part of the journey. This is, I'm sure that some of these things kind of naturally began to strengthen. Others, maybe you were intentional,
Mm-hmm.
but I find that when you're in it, when you're in the grind of leading, you just start to grow. Now, you didn't mention this, but I want to mention it, and I think it's valuable. It might not be this. This is actually, I think it's a little bit of a hot topic sometimes in church leadership, but I think in the
Mm-hmm.
marketplace it might come up as well. Women in leadership, right? The fact that you are the CEO and you're a woman. We all
Right.
know that the qualification for somebody in a role isn't based on what gender they are, but some cultures have challenges with that. Some industries might have challenges with that. I'm not an expert in the construction industry, but my assumption would be that there's a lot of men leading in the construction
Yes,
industry,
you're
and
right.
you're a woman leading. Was that a challenge for you, like on a personal level? Was that a challenge, or do you think it was a challenge for anybody in the process? I know this is a kind of an unscripted
Yeah.
question, but I think that sometimes for some people it's a bigger deal than for others, and even for, I wonder for you, was it ever even a thought, or just you just kept moving forward?
That's a really interesting question. That's a good question, and I'm actually pausing to reflect.
Yeah.
I'm not. It it is kind of funny, but in for my husband and I, they'll say he's way more the emotional one, and I'm not. I'm very facts, and I'm very like keep yourself in line. And truly, the only times I ever cry is really it's the Holy movement of the Holy Spirit. That's what'll
Uh-huh.
drive me to the tears. But um, I never really thought about it. I never really thought the
Mm.
fact of being a woman would be a hindrance in my role or a hindrance in my career. And interesting enough, my peer group that I belong to, which is CEOs and presidents of large corporations, they're all men. I'm the only one, and it never faces me. Like I'm the only woman that's sitting there. Um,
Mm.
but I do know that it is an issue within our industry. And when I mean issue, construction is the largest employer nationwide, right? The construction industry. And predominantly it's male. And so for women to break into this industry isn't the easiest thing to do, up to be honest.
Hmm.
And maybe I want to be a bit of a disruptor in my role and give those opportunities for those moms, those wives, the single moms to have an opportunity if there's a desire in the construction industry. I know we
Mm.
have our first all female led project management team that's working on one of our projects in Florida. And that excites me, as giving those opportunities. But
Mm.
definitely is it's a valuable thing to discuss. Now, I will say this one thing that I've learned in the process is diversity of thought is so important. And diversity of
Mm.
thought is when you can bring a woman into the room with men and be able to have good conversation around topics or issues or whatever the case may be and come out aligned to a central vision. That's powerful. There
Yeah.
is power in bringing them together. And so maybe that's a bit of like for myself, I never thought about that. Again, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, male
Hmm.
dominated. I also grew up in a Mennonite family. That's a story for another day. But um, I never felt undervalued as a female or my offering.
Love
If
that.
anything, it was, and I don't, and I think I would encourage any woman, don't dismiss yourself because of that. If you look back at Christ and you look at who he showed himself to and who
Hmm.
he brought into his ministry, his business, if you will, it was women.
Hmm.
Elevating them, and I think it's own the space that God gave you, own the platform the Lord gave you, and own it wholeheartedly and unapologetically. He put you in the spot, and you're doing it unto Him and no one else.
I love what you're saying, and the truth is, Rebecca, that there are some spaces, even in the church world, where women in leadership is kind of not accepted, and in some circles. And so
Yeah,
I love the fact that even when I think construction, it wouldn't be my first instinct, but I love the fact that God chooses who He chooses. And I
yeah,
also love that you have been comfortable in your own skin. Maybe the family you grew up in was a kind of a good kind of embraced and encouraged you in that.
right.
But I think it's important what you're saying. Not everybody has ever. There are probably some women listening into this podcast that this is encouraging. That they need to hear that. They need to hear, own the space and own the platform that God has given you. I think there's something. I think there's something there as well, that your voice needs to be heard. I think people need to be encouraged by that because it took a little bit of confirmation from the Lord, but once you were clear, it sounds like once you were clear, you had no hesitation. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, yeah, that would be safe to say. I think once I had that confirmation from the Lord that yes, this is what I'm calling you to. This is where I want you to go, and I want you to lead. Um, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to own that space. That's what you have. That's what you have for me. I'm going to do my part, right,
Hmm.
and work it out. And it's that I haven't experienced it yet in my seat, if you will, the issue
Hmm.
of me being a female. If anything, it's been a benefit to our team, right? It's a fresh set of eyes, a
Yeah.
fresh set of vision, and I love. I mean, my our CFO is a female. Love it, and our human resource manager are female, and so definitely, and I see them owning their space. This is
Mm.
that their calling, and this is where the Lord's put them, and they're going to do it as unto the Lord and do it to the best of their ability. And yeah, I think after that's what mattered. After I got that confirmation from the Lord, that's what mattered.
Yeah.
I need to do this.
I like that. So, one of the big responsibilities that any leader has, whether it's a corporation, an organization, a church, right, is inspiring your team, inspiring the people that you lead. Can you maybe unpack some things that have helped you? Maybe some tips. Maybe there's people leaning in right now that could really use some advice on how do you inspire the people you lead effectively?
That's a great question. First of all, you need to know your why. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, or why you're leading where you're leading, or why you're on the platform you're on. And then you need to create a really clear vision that aligns to that why. So it's something that people you're leading can get aligned to. They can come
Hmm.
around. And that was what I mean, speaking from the personal experience with TNT, when I came out with this was our go forward plan, and this is where we were going, and this is our vision, our mission, this is our core values, this is our plan. I saw people starting to align to it. They got excited. My job as CEO is organizational structure and remain solvent, right? Fiscal responsibility, but it's also to motivate and influence an organization to drive towards the goals that you're setting. And so what I have found is when you truly desire to unlock the gifts that lie within each of us, God created gifts, right, that are in each of us,
Yep.
and you desire as a leader to unlock those that you are serving, you're going to see them grow. I mean, I've seen it in my own industry. I've seen it in TNT. I have one particular leader that I could see that he there was things inside of him that had not yet come out that had leadership capabilities, and we did provide coaching.
Mm,
That's one thing I did bring in over this last year and a half is provided coaching for our leaders. I think that's important too. But I saw it unlock in him one day, like the light bulb went off, and he got excited. And I think as a leader to inspire, you need to know your why, and then you need to have that clear vision, and then you need to foster those gifts and talents in them, to grow. And I'll add this. This statement was made to me by an executive advisor that I have been working with. And he said to me one day, he's like, Rebecca, suspend judgment and remain curious.
mm,
Curiosity drives innovation. And you want more voices in the room, and you want them to be heard. And I found as I started to become more curious about our people and more curious about their ideas and more even though I already knew the answer and I had to wait, the 4 month process for them to get there. The fact that I was encouraging that out of them was
mm,
an inspiration to them. They had value. They had something to bring to the
mm.
table. It helped them come alongside of like, hey, this is our vision, this is where we're going. But it really starts with your why. And if your why is selfish, you're gonna have a really hard time inspiring other people to follow you. True, truly.
That's good. That's good. I love it. I love when I hear you talk about your role in your leadership, Rebecca. I can really hear a leader that has grown, and it seems like you and by the way, it seems like you have a desire to continue growing, and I love that because I think
Yeah,
that's what leaders do.
yeah,
I'm curious here, and this is gonna require you to be a little bit vulnerable, which is this: no leader is perfect, right? We
right,
make mistakes
right.
along the journey.
Yep.
And as you look back on your leadership journey, can you give I love this question because we all have stories, right? Can you think of a time in your leadership where maybe you didn't make the best decision, or maybe you would look back at it as that could be a leadership fail of mine early on, or that wasn't the best way of maybe handling the situation or the person, because sometimes employees can be difficult, right? Or maybe a time where you felt I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then later you felt, oh, I wish I would have known this, because I know as a pastor
Right.
and then as leading the staff, I know that early on, I may have responded or reacted in a certain way that later I look back and said, oh, that was not the best way to deal with the situation, to respond to the person in the moment. Can you think of anything like that in your leadership journey where you was like, man, I kind of messed up here and I learned from it?
So yes, I think I have numerous stories of, and I'm one that in full transparency, there's edits in life that we have to make, right? That didn't work. We're pivoting and we're going. I tend to not use the word fail, right? I say there's an edit.
Huh?
Got to make an edit, and that. So interesting enough, some of our greatest strengths can be our weaknesses if they're not
Mm,
bridled effectively. And one
hmm
of my greatest strengths is change. I can handle rapid change fast, and I can adjust and pivot quickly. Like if that's a hurdle, we're going to figure out how to get over it. We're going to go under it, around it. And my dad used to say this growing up. She knows no bounds. She knows no hurdles. If she set her mind on something, you're going to do it. She will find a
Uh-huh.
way to get there. And my husband will joke, you can change anything, anytime, and just don't change me. I'm good. I'm the one that's off limits. Well, coming in as a leader, when you do not have a bridle on your desire for change, and you are leading people that change is like nails on a chalkboard to them,
hmm
it can cause huge problems. And I
hmm
had, my first year, I want to say within my first year, it was a lesson I learned really quick when I had one of the leaders came into my office and said, I'm saying this very respectfully. And everyone knows that I am willing, I want to hear, right? I'm not,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really good with constructive criticism. It's not an
Yeah.
issue. Or if there's, I want you to be able to speak freely, respectfully, but freely. But he came into my office and he said, Rebecca, we can't handle all this change. I mean, one day it's this, the next day it's that, then you want to go do this. We don't know. What are we supposed to do first? Are we over here? Are we over there? And I could see how it was starting to affect the departments in they weren't sure, like, today are we doing this, are we going to do that, or I'm doing an about face that a company, it's like a big ship, right? And
Mhm.
the little rudder is turning and it takes forever for those huge barges to turn, but I was operating
Mhm.
a huge barge as if I was a cigarette boat that was going to make like the big quick turn really fast, or a trick boat or what have
Mhm.
you. And I really was essentially damaging the ship in
Mm.
my rapid change. And I had to learn to slow down. Change was still good, but I
Mhm.
had to learn to bridle it, and what in small doses, and what could change, or really think through how would this change affect um, multiple layers down the organization. And it's one of those where, as I said earlier on, you were going from that owner operator designed organization into a corporate structure. That alone is change, and there's so many aspects of the company that changed. We had a lot of turnover at the time, a lot of restructuring was going on, and I had to learn as a leader how to filter that change appropriately. And I'm sure even as a pastor or any leadership in church,
Mhm.
you've got a lot of people looking at you, and when you do an about face really fast, it can have some disrupting, right, effects. And so yeah, I learned the hard way. Still drive for a lot of change, but I've learned how to filter it better.
That's a very good example, and I relate because I have learned as a lead leader, I have learned to embrace change and to make bold moves. But I've also learned that not everybody is as excited to do that as often.
Exactly. Exactly.
So here's another interesting question. And after this, I'd love to let people know how they can connect with you, learn more about TNT, and maybe learn, connect with you and your leadership. Um, if you can you remind me the year when you became CEO?
I think it was, what are we in, 2000? I think it was 2022 I stepped in.
Okay, and then the first role you took with the company was in what year?
The first role, I came in as a project or accounts payable at the time. I think I came in at 2015, maybe
Yeah.
2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say somewhere in between 2003 and 2022, somewhere in the middle there, maybe in the teens. And you were able to speak to your younger self saying, "Hey, in a few years, you're going to become the CEO of TNT."
Right.
What advice? What advice would you give yourself in preparation for that transition and role on a leadership perspective?
Boy, that is a great question. What advice that I give myself? Uh,
And I'll add this: there are people listening into this podcast or watching it who are approaching that type of transition in their leadership, or who are approaching stepping into a big responsibility leadership role, whether it's now in the near future or maybe already did. And so your advice to your younger self is kind of like your advice to a lot of us, right, that are listening and saying, "Hey, we might be stepping into a role like that." So what would you say from your experience and where you are now would be the advice you would give yourself?
I would say don't ever underestimate the gifts that the Lord has given you.
That's
And
good.
don't underestimate the calling that He has on your life, even if it's delayed, in your opinion. Even if it's down the road. Like I had said earlier on, there was this desire to want to be able to speak and encourage and mentor, and it was within the church. But it wasn't where the Lord was going to use that platform for me. And I've waited and waited and waited, and now I'm here in a business world, in the role that I'm in, and the Lord has now elevated to this platform to be able to speak on different levels of leadership or business or entrepreneurs or
Mm.
things of that nature. And so I would look at myself and back then and I'd say, don't underestimate what the Lord's put in you and learn. Don't wait until you're elevated into these seats. Learn now. It starts now. It starts those small baby steps, right? It starts with diving into God's word and really knowing his character and who he is, and knowing the gifts that he's placed in you and refining them and defining them, but not to give up. Don't give up hope because it's down the road. It'll happen one day and you can prepare yourself for that. So but I would say it to myself, it's there, it'll happen. So start preparing now. Start for preparing for what's going to come.
Ooh, I like that. This is what I heard. Don't underestimate God's calling and giftings in your life. I heard,
Mm-hmm.
don't lose hope or don't get impatient if it's
Right?
apparently delayed. And don't wait to prepare yourself and get equipped. Start working on yourself now
Yeah.
before you have the title and the promotion. I like that. Wisdom, drop the mic, hashtag Rebecca Thomas. I love it. I love it. Rebecca, this has been awesome. I would love for you to share if people want to connect with you and learn more about you or even the company. Where can they go?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Would be a spot. They can find me on LinkedIn, and also the company website is ttcon.com. They can find more there too.
Excellent. I also want to mention to all of our AVAIL audience our AVAIL Journal, which is leadership magazine, predominantly Christian leadership magazine. I love this magazine. It comes out quarterly. It has some of the best leadership content I've seen out there. So leaders, whether you're in leadership in ministry or your leadership in the marketplace, the AVAIL Journal, this is good for you. This is good for you. Go to availjournal.com and try our free trial subscription on us so you can get a taste of it. Rebecca, I think you've held one of these in your hands before, right?
I have, yeah, love it. It's great magazine. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. It's important as leaders to have good resources. Availjournal.com so you can get a free trial subscription if you're not already on it. I'd love to hear a final thought, a final nugget, a final encouragement. What's on your heart? What do you want to leave on leaders' hearts as we finish up this conversation, Rebecca?
I would say, God has given us platforms ultimately to use for his glory, and to approach your leadership with a servant mindset, and that you lead those that you've been entrusted with well, serve them well, and ultimately you're serving the Lord.
Woo! I love it. Approach leadership with a servant heart. Great advice, Rebecca. I love that we have this conversation, and I love that God has called you to lead in a very strategic and special role and position in your company. And I love that you were able to share this with our AVAIL audience. I think there's probably a lot of leaders out there that are not only relating to you, but also leaning in and gleaning from your experience, your wisdom, your gifting, and your calling. So, on behalf of the AVAIL team, our co-founders, Dr. Sam Chand, Martijn Van Tilborg, we just want to say we're proud of you. We honor you, and we pray that the Lord would continue to use you to impact so many lives. You're doing a great job, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. It was great to be with you today. I really appreciate it.
Yes. I hope you've been encouraged, everybody, by this conversation with Rebecca Thomas. What an awesome leader doing amazing things where God has called her to be. Hey, on behalf of AVAIL Podcast, my name is Virgil Sierra, lead pastor of Vertical Church, your host for these fresh, hot fire podcasts on leadership that come out every Tuesday. Lean in to everything we have. Also visit The Art of Leadership for more resources from us, theartofleadership.com. We love you. We'll catch you next time right here on the AVAIL Podcast. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL Podcast with our guest, Rebecca Thomas. You can find out more about Rebecca on LinkedIn or by going to ttcon.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. And make sure to claim your free trial subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL podcast host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL podcast.